Welcome back to another episode of Can You Believe That? I am the car wizard of YouTube fame. You guys have seen me with Hoovie's Garage all over the place on YouTube. And then we have a paranormal slash cryptid guru, Thomas Durant, who also does professional camera work.
Yeah, I'm a television producer, camera operator, editor. Depending on what needs to be done, I just like to do things, which is why I love the paranormal, because there's so many facets to this topic, and we get to explore all of that with you all.
One thing we're going to talk about today on this episode, I'm going to be learning. I have some questions, have some things I'm going to bring up, but I've heard about this guy from years past, just watching it on TV and reading about him, and his Edgar Cayce. How many of you guys have heard about him and his abilities and things of that nature? I'm very excited to dive in, Tommy.
Yeah, me too. This is one of those topics that since childhood, when I heard the name Edgar Cayce on Unsolved Mysteries, I was like, this guy's fascinating. And he is one of the most prolific psychics or prophets or whatever you want to call it. The information he gave ends up being true a lot of the time. And because of the system he set up, he documented thousands and thousands of his readings. So without further ado, we bring you our discussion on Edgar Cayce.
But one thing I know, Tommy, is he was born, I think he was born in the late 1870s.
1877, and well, just south of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, which is known for another crazy story of the Hopkinsville goblins. But that has nothing to do with Edgar Cayce.
No.
And in fact, that's a whole nother episode that we will have to do at some point.
Definitely.
But yeah, born in rural Kentucky, and really like nobody, including him, could have predicted the path his life was going to take once he, became an adult.
A lot of the abilities he had, he could foresee things in the future. He could even give people diagnosis, like health diagnoses of what's wrong with them, do readings for people about loved ones that have passed and things. And I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is he couldn't just do this while he was awake like we are talking fully conscious. He was in some sort of a state where he's asleep.
Yeah, well, his nickname is the Sleeping Prophet, right? So that's
Okay.
the reason for it. The reason they call him that is as a child in the 1890s, he went out into the woods as he always did, and he would enjoy playing with the woodland spirits. He could see things that other people couldn't see. But what he believed happened is at one point he met an angel out there that kind of explained to him, you are meant for greater things. What would you like to do? And the only thing Edgar Cayce said he wanted to do when he grew up was to help people, especially children. Then that same year, he's studying for school and his dad's quizzing him. And he was not a great student, but his dad was absolutely infuriated that he couldn't figure this out and he couldn't do his lessons properly. And a voice came through to him as he's being berated and in some accounts beaten by his dad in this scenario, that he just needs to sleep on the book. And he literally falls asleep on top of this book, wakes up, and this is what's recounted by one of his children who heard the story from him directly firsthand. He says he was able to recite everything in the book, all of his lessons, could even tell what line of which paragraphs on what pages certain information was. Blew his dad out of the water, and ever since then, that's how Edgar Cayce studied for school. But he wasn't in school long, and eventually he left school to pursue his careers of sorts, and there's a couple different ones. But as part of that, the sleeping became a way for him to obtain this information. And even like he was going to hypnotists at one point for a vocal issue that he couldn't speak. He wasn't able to talk, and doctors couldn't figure out what it was. He's with a hypnotist that basically says, hey, I'm going to try to put you under, but I think you can do this yourself. So sure enough, Edgar Cayce goes under in his own sleep-like hypnotic state, diagnoses his own problem, and basically the voice that says, hey, this is psychosomatic, your brain is making it so you can't talk, just do XYZ and you'll be okay. And within months, I believe, he was speaking again. And that was the catalyst that showed him, hey, this can help people, so maybe I need to start doing this for other folks.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So he was able, I don't know if he's able to heal himself, but he was able to figure out the problem, correct the problem, and take care of his speech issue.
Yeah, and thousands of cases where people came in with our child or I am suffering with XYZ. He would go under, do a reading for them. And this is a man who barely finished grade school, did not get a doctorate in anything, but somehow he was able to take complex biology, simplify it so people could understand it, and then deliver that information so that people could begin healing. And sure enough, it worked. There's even a point in 1914 where his son, Hugh Lynn, was playing around with some flash powder because one of Casey's careers was as a photographer. And flash powder is what they use in the old term flashes, so that like in old timey, you do a picture, you have to have a flash because we don't have LED video lights back then. So as he's playing with the flash powder, it goes off, it blinds him, burns his eyes severely. Desperate for a way to save his son's eye, because the doctors were like, we got to take these out or we're going to have to make it, he'll never be able to see again. Edgar Cayce went into sleep, got the information, which was recorded. They used that protocol on his son, and sure enough, Hugh's vision was regained. And again, this story was also corroborated by both his sons who were there, you know? So this is a real
Wow.
thing that happened. And it was, again, another catalyst for him to remember what the angelic lady in the forest had said and that he wanted to help people. And he dedicated his life to doing it. And sure, like he had to make a living, so he had other careers, he had investors, but he never took money from clients. Donations are one thing, but he didn't take money from clients to do this work because he felt it was what God had put him there to do. And so that was what made me respect the hell out of this guy. No pun intended. Like, I really respect Edgar Cayce because he was just saying, you know what? Let's do what we can. Let's help people for free if we can.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, as we'll find out a little bit later, there are people who take advantage of that kindness and use this ability that he has for nefarious purposes. And I think ultimately led to his death.
I know from a fact that doing some reading on him that he had all these abilities, he helped people, but there's also a phase in his life where he started telling things that had happened or different races of people, and he actually got very controversial and pissed off a lot of people where they're like, this guy is a kook, something's wrong, you know. And I'll go over a couple of them, we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
He says he had a controversial theory called polygenism, where there were five races originally: white, black, red, brown, and yellow were created separately and simultaneously on different parts of the earth. He said he accepted the existence of aliens and Atlantis, saying the red race developed on Atlantis and its development was very rapid. So those are the kind of things where he goes along, helps people, you know, he's maybe helping people get healed or understand their health problems. And then he starts doing this thing, going into this phase of his life, really starts alienating people and kind of they're like, what the hell? Where does this come from? How does this help us?
Well, funny enough, you say that. The reason is you have to remember Edgar Cayce was a devout Christian. So much like you, Wizard, he was a guy who followed the Bible and really just tried to be a good man that always came from Christian centered values. But then here comes discussions of Atlantis or this thing called the Akashic Records, which is what he was told is where he gains this repository of information that's out there that he's accessing.
Hmm.
There's also discussions on reincarnation, which is definitely not a Christian ideal.
No.
These things came up because, number one, sometimes they would just randomly happen in certain readings, but he was around a lot of spiritualist people and New Age people early in the New Age movement. And these people were asking him these questions, specifically about past lives, reincarnation, and some of these other like things that may or may not exist. But the answers he gave are pretty remarkable. So let's start with Atlantis, right?
Hmm.
This is one that we have some interesting concrete proof for one of his readings, of which, again, there's over 14,000 readings that we have recorded evidence of. So that means he had a stenographer or a secretary taking notes of what was being said in the moment it was coming out of his mouth. We have all this. It's all on record with the A.R.E., which is an institute in Virginia Beach that is dedicated to Edgar Cayce and his stuff. So through the A.R.E., we're able to find these prophecies, one of which said that in around the 1960s, 1970s, evidence of Atlantis would rise somewhere near the Caribbean, or I believe more specifically the Bahamas. That is something that actually happened because we can't call it Atlantis, but around that time is when the Bimini Road was discovered. And for those who don't know, Bimini Road is an area outside the Bahamas, underwater, submerged, of giant rock formations that look very square, very linear, and make roads. Like they look like roadways. And a lot of people initially speculated, is this remnants of Atlantis? Because it's where Edgar Cayce said it would be. So he was spot on about the timing of the find and the location of the find. So we have to understand, like, yeah, maybe there's more to this story than we know.
I've definitely seen things on TV and researched the Bimini Road. There's like perfectly placed stones that
Yeah.
are formed together, and there's a road that just goes in the middle of the seafloor. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Something definitely was there. That was not created by nature. It was created by beings or an intelligent race of beings or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have people like Avi Loeb right now, the Harvard astrophysicist, who is telling us about Three Eye Atlas.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things he says is modern science is almost as bad as the Catholic Church was to Galileo, where it's like, no, this is what we believe. You can't be outside that. And so Avi's getting a lot of pushback for his talk on Three Eye Atlas being a potential technology from non-human intelligence. Imagine finding this Bimini Road in the Bahamas. Well, the same thing happened. A lot of scientists came out of the woodwork to say, no, 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 those are natural formations. It's 90-degree angles of perfectly cut multi-ton stones.
Yeah.
Maybe, but the chances are pretty astronomical because we don't see those same kind of right angles, especially that many of them in a row
Hmm.
in the world. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think there's something to it. I think Edgar Cayce was definitely onto something. I don't know if it's Atlantis, but there's some civilization there. And there's a lot of talk of how Atlantis is tied to UFO phenomenon, which, again, you said yourself came from Edgar Cayce as well.
Hmm.
What do we know? Well, we know that these UFOs also have USOs, unidentified submerged objects,
Right.
and they have a lot of connection to certain areas in the ocean, including that area of the world. How do we know there's not a civilization living somewhere in a trench there that we're not able to get access to? I mean, I know this is all speculation, folks, but that's why you come here. You like our speculation. So, welcome to the speculation land.
Just like the movie Abyss.
Exactly. I mean, for all we know, Bimini Road could have been their above water, base at some point because they have great technology, greater than ours. Obviously, we've seen that time and time again. And then, for whatever reason, Atlantis sinks. Doesn't mean that they didn't find some way to survive or to build other bases or to have other structures that they could go to continue surviving and thriving under the oceans.
Well, I have some more crazy things that he claimed or things that he told people. It gets weirder, man. It gets really crazier.
I love weird. Bring it.
He says he believed there were soul entities, like souls, on Earth intermingling with animals to produce things such as giants were as tall as 12 feet tall and other strange creatures. What's
Hmm.
going on with that?
If you look at biblical scriptures, and some of the people in our comments have even said this during our Giants episode, if you think about the fact that the angels from biblical time came down, mated with women, created
Hmm.
the Nephilim,
Yeah,
giants, and then those were wiped out in a deluge. Well, the story's not vastly different.
it's not really.
To me, that just sounds like another version of that story coming out. Now, whether it's true or not, I leave it up to you to decide. But in our Giants episode, which you should definitely watch, we come to our own conclusion.
It sounds like genetic manipulation to me. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and if they're a very large and very old and very technologically savvy group of entities, they can do that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why a lot of people do buy into the idea that maybe Earth is a petri dish that was created to observe, like a science experiment. And, who knows what happens when the experiment's over? I hope we don't get flushed like a goldfish, but you never know.
It says also here, you mentioned Atlantis. We talked about the Bimini Road. It says that he predicted there would be a series of cataclysmic events, including a polar shift that would lead to Atlantis rising from the sea again.
Guess what, Wizard? The polar shift theory that he had, or the prophecy, it's coming true.
It is. It slowly is. I've been hearing about that.
Yes, he actually, in one of his prophecies, I believe it was Gladys, his secretary, recorded a lot of these. It was written that he said in about 2000 or 2001, he predicted that the poles would shift, which would cause a lot of upheaval on the planet with volcanoes and tectonic plates and all that. So in the 90s, in 2000s, we sent up satellites. And sure enough, these satellites around 2001 confirmed that they were able to see that the pole is not quite where we thought it was. And we have seen the magnetic poles of the Earth shifting. So instead of being at the North Pole, where we all are familiar it should be, it's now somewhere over Russia. That is crazy. The fact that this man was able to predict this in the 1930s
That's crazy. It is.
with no scientific background, with no knowledge of the actual future other than falling asleep and coming out with it. And so that tells me that we probably should be prepared for what comes after that polar shift or during this time of a polar shift, because he did talk about massive upheaval of land. So not only would Atlantis rise back out of the water, but most of the coastline in the US would disappear. Basically huge swaths of California, Oregon, even parts of Washington where I live, and most of the East Coast would be swallowed up by the oceans, leaving oceanfront property in places like Arizona, Colorado, etc. So this is something that, I consider looking at as a potential warning for all of us, like what's going to happen if that goes down.
So speaking of Atlantis and everything that we just mentioned, another thing that I read is he predicts there's some large red crystal in the middle of Atlantis that's like a power source. And when Atlantis rises, humanity will discover not only free energy from the earth, but also it'll be able to make a very deadly weapon like a laser or a ray that will be detrimental to society. I don't know.
During his sleeping prophet times, a lot of what came out was that humanity is coming to a crossroads where we need to make a decision on the type of innate people we want to be. So that power source that you're talking about being used either to power the world or to destroy the world, it's kind of the same way that we look at nuclear weapons. Like right now we have nuclear power plants that provide light to a lot of people, but we also have nuclear armaments that, as we've seen, absolutely decimate humans. With that, I think Edgar's right again, because here you have Cayce saying, yeah, this may happen, but it's really up to us on how it's used. Do we want to be better, or do we want to stay in the warlike mentality? Because all of the readings where they talk about this and the spirituality and the future of humanity, it's all hopeful that we're going to figure out fighting over land, fighting over material stuff doesn't make sense, and that we need to focus instead on uplifting everyone and uplifting each other and working together. And you'll hear this echoed in the UFO community as well, because the UFO community says, yeah, a lot of these entities are waiting for us to sort of raise our consciousness, basically get out of being warlike crazy people.
Right.
Then they'll interact with us. And I believe it's even what Jesus wanted for people. He wanted us to learn compassion, kindness, and respect for one another. And I think that's not a hard thing to do. But unfortunately, there's a lot of forces working against that in this world, including people that want to hold on to power and money. You have people that enjoy engaging in putting people against each other so that there is strife and confusion and anger. And then you have a media that's completely based, I'm sorry to say this, I work in media, completely based on getting negative reactions because it's what sells airtime. It's what sells advertising. It's what gets people to watch your stuff. Even though you're watching this and we don't do that, well, there's a reason why we don't do that, because we're choosing to be conscious media. We're choosing the path of Edgar Cayce or what Jesus would want because we think that's the right direction. We're not here to fearmonger. We're here to say, hey, we want to share what we know because it's exciting and it's fun. And we should have that childlike curiosity in us always and let that take front stage. That instead of beating each other up or telling Wizard, oh, I don't believe in what you believe in. You have to believe in what I mean, that doesn't solve any problems. So we have these discussions, we do this stuff, and we hope that in the end, like, yeah, it's an uplifting message for you all, or it just gives you some extra knowledge or something fun to talk about.
Right. And a lot of these things that Edgar Cayce brought up, like we're talking about right now, and it just confirms to me that whether it be extraterrestrials or Jesus or some other entity that comes down, that they're, like you said, they're outside waiting. They have technology. They can heal cancer. They can do a lot of different things, but we're not ready. I think they know that if they bring this stuff down and give us the knowledge, we'll just use it to shoot death rays at each other and destroy the environment, radiation, kill the earth. Instead of saying, let's use this to cure cancer, let's use it to shoot our brothers and sisters. That's basically what it would be.
Yeah, I really hope we can figure it out and get there because I would love for a world where we don't have to pay for energy. We don't have to worry if people are going to have food or not. We don't have to worry if healthcare is a thing for people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, these are all things that should be basic human rights for everybody.
And what's really cool is however that comes about, Edgar Cayce was able to foresee it or to see it happening. It's just really, really interesting. But I have a little bit more I want to share that gets in more into the weird stuff. He went even to the point of telling people certain foods to eat
Yeah.
and how it could affect their body. He had a promotion of pseudoscientific dieting and homeopathic remedies, which a lot of people in the time they considered it quackery. It's just like it's a bunch of hocus pocus garbage. But a science writer, Karen Stolznow, wrote, the reality is that his cures were hearsay and his treatments were folk remedies that were useless at best and dangerous at worst. Cayce wasn't able to cure his own cousin or his own son, who died as a baby. Many of Cayce's readings took place after the patient had already died. That's what they thought, anyways.
Yes, he did have a son that died early on. He wasn't able to solve that problem.
Yeah.
But he was, again, able to bring eyesight back to his other living son, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we do have that account. There are hundreds of people that explained that he healed them.
Yeah.
I think science will eventually catch up to some of this. The more I look into nutrition, because my wife is a nutrition coach, this is what she
Mm-hmm.
does. What we eat is, in fact, very important to seeing how our bodies work and operate properly or not properly. I honestly, again, I'm going to stand behind my boy Edgar Cayce because I think no matter what this writer says, maybe not everything was accurate, but it's like inevitable. Placebo will have some sort of change to certain patients if they believe it's going to work. I mean, even if that's all Edgar's doing, he's still giving people hope.
Yeah. To kind of expand upon, like you mentioned with nutrition and things, it says that he had ideas of food combining and an alkaline diet.
Yeah.
Not mixing certain things like milk cannot be consumed with citrus fruits, coffee must be taken without cream or milk, and sugary foods cannot be taken with starchy foods,
Yeah.
and that even nutritious foods can poison the body if the person is in a negative frame of mind.
Yeah, which I mean, the negative frame of mind, it's hard to validate that, but I
I
can
don't know
say,
about that. Yeah.
well, but I can say that in the homeopathy and naturopathic sort of schools of medicine, which I know still people poo poo on them, but that's where I swing. They talk about how an alkaline body makes it harder for cancer to grow, and there's some results there. So we know that people that switch their diet to a more alkaline diet can sometimes heal faster from certain illnesses and dis-ease. I think again, the science will catch up. As of right now, though, I mean, people want to believe what they want to believe. All I can say is, so far, Edgar Cayce is standing the test of time with what he has said. And again, let me throw some examples out there for people because I know we're talking about it, and I'm saying, oh yeah, but he's right about stuff. Let me give you some real world examples, and I have my notes for this, so I'm going back to note mode, y'all. Before this happened, he predicted the stock market crash of 1929. He actually, in writing from sessions, told two different people that this was going to happen. Another one is the rise of Hitler. He saw starting in 1939 and said eventually Germany, Austria, and Japan would work together as a power. Nobody would have thought Japan would have been involved in any of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somehow he was able to see it decades earlier. He also said that America would join the war in 1941, which we did,
Mm-hmm.
and talked about how the only way Hitler was going to come out of power was after a great war. All of this accurate. He had made a prediction that two presidents would die before their end of term in office. And of course, we have Roosevelt dying in office and then JFK's assassination. That one, I can understand maybe people feel it's a little wishy-washy. So even if you take that one away, the creation of the state of Israel, he predicted that accurately. Prophesized the pole shift, which we talked about, and the Bimini Road thing, which we also talked about. I mean, that's just a short list of stuff that I was able to find in preparation for the show. There's a lot more. Like I said, over 14,000 recorded readings. And you can go, this is what I love about this, the A.R.E. Institute, which is the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, they have all this stuff on file. Anyone can go there, become a member, and have access to all of his reading material. Like everything that he did, they really are trying to carry on the legacy of his work. But again, 14,000 readings. And if he's got a 90% accuracy rate, which is what I would guess he has, that's still insanely high. So why would you throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Yeah, I agree. Now, I have a kind of a towards the end of this video here, I have a question about his methods. So he would go into this trance state or something. I just wanted to we could kind of talk about it. What do you think was going on there? Was he maybe like projecting himself into another reality, or was he just be able to hear other things speaking to him, or did he leave this dimension?
His son talked about this a little bit, and he said it was threefold. He said part of it was this accessing of the Akashic records. Again, the Akashic records, for those who don't know, is this place or a book, like the book of life, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
where everything, everywhere, all at once is written down, and you can access it if you're trained or you have the right insights or some entities are guiding you to it. In Edgar's case, he fell asleep and then he would have access to this information through this vast array of like knowledge that just is a repository that he would pull from.
Right.
His sons also said that there might be some mediumistic stuff or psychic stuff that would happen, which mediumship, for those who don't know, is when a person has the ability to talk to a deceased person, whether they've crossed over or they're a ghost and they're still earthbound. But it was kind of a mixture of things according to his sons. But, according to Edgar, it was the angel helped give him access to the Akashic records, and he was able to go and just access stuff almost like using a card catalog or searching Google, I guess, for modern people who didn't have card catalogs. Now I feel old. Card catalogs, nobody does that anymore. So yeah, like Googling it, but while he was sleeping. And it's funny because he could just put himself to sleep and he didn't have conscious recollection of any of it. So that's why his assistant and his wife, Gertrude, would write this stuff down.
Whoever was writing this down, and you said it was like, was it 14,000 readings?
14,306 readings that were documented, not including the ones that were not documented.
No one's going to write down that many readings for free. There had to have been a payroll, Tommy.
Well, small payroll. So throughout the years, he did have some investors, which I believe is how he used to pay for that stuff. He still had his careers that he would do to make money for he and his family, but they were never wealthy. They never were really well off. And in fact, the hospital that he founded in the 1900s, early 1900s, well, by 1931, his funding had gotten pulled and they had to close the hospital, which is sad because he was really trying to use it to help a lot of people, including children, get over illnesses and
Yeah.
to be rehabilitated. And it's like any good deed doesn't go unpunished these days. Edgar Cayce suffered the same thing. And in fact, he had got another visitation from the angel later on in life, I believe, which told him he needed to slow down on his readings because he was trying to do too much while also working and tending things around the house. And he wouldn't. He was like, this is my job. This is what I have to do. Like, I need to help people. And so he continued doing readings, and eventually it really made him sick. He started slowing down a lot, and he had a vision of his own death if he didn't stop, but he never stopped. And so in January 3rd, 1945, he died of a stroke, which he had predicted. And then 3 months later, his wife joined him on the other side and she passed away. So, really unfortunate for that family. I know what it's like to lose your parents one after another. It is awful. So, to his sons, which I don't believe they're alive anymore, but to both of the sons, like I can't imagine what that was like for them. But on top of that, you have all these people that were clamoring to get to your dad to get information. And again, some of which very nice people, but then there were those dubious characters that were using him and his abilities for things, which included oil barons looking for where to drill. Like there were
Right.
several oil barons that used him that would tell him, hey, we want to do a reading about health stuff or spirituality. And then as soon as he was under, they would start asking him where to drill or asking what to invest in to make more money if they were investors, all to benefit themselves. And it's said that, and by his sons and by other people, that when Edgar would come out of those readings, he would be sick. He would feel like drained and physically ill because the gift was never meant for that. I think ultimately he used his gifts, and when they got exploited, it led to his stroke and he passed away.
Basically, it was kind of abuse in a way of
Yeah.
those gifts. It ended up taking its toll on him.
Yeah, not shame on him for it because he really did have altruistic vision on what to do with it because he thought he was doing what God had asked him to do. but shame on the people who used him.
Yeah, that's not good. That's again what we talked about is with entities or extraterrestrials that have knowledge or they have tools that we could use and we're just not ready. I mean,
Yeah.
think about what is the biggest thing all through history, recorded history till now, is been a big deal for humanity, and that's control of resources,
Yeah.
slaughtering, killing, so they can have control of this region, control of a trade or a different things. It would just be the same thing over again. And we see that with Edgar Cayce, where he brought this wonderful gift forward that could help people. And even then, people are like, I need to control this situation to build my wealth and become wealthier. That's humanity. It's sad.
It is sad. And that's why it made his messages of trying to become a better human, it makes that even more tragic because he did see the best in people. He
Yeah.
really was trying to help people heal, become better people, make changes in the world, or be part of the changes in the world that would save people. These messages of beautiful things like working together and building a new future and being self-reliant but yet living in loving communities, like this is his vision for the future, and I think we're missing the mark pretty vastly on it. But I really hope that even if a catastrophe doesn't happen, we start figuring it out.
Yeah. So before we go, do you have any more interesting tidbits about Edgar Cayce?
I would say if you're interested in Edgar Cayce, definitely go to the A.R.E website because they've got a lot of stuff on there. I think if you're interested at all in psychic abilities and sort of like reincarnation, he's got a lot of great information out there from the readings that is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So my next question, kind of steering away from Edgar Cayce, is do we have any comments or questions from our viewers?
Well, as a matter of fact, we do, sir. We do.
Please tell me one of them is from Jimalot.
You know what? Surprisingly, Gemalot just thanked us for answering their question again and moved on with their life. So
Okay.
there's one that I wanted to talk about because I actually think it's funny. It's more of a funny one. This one's about Bigfoot and cryptids. It says maybe in real life Bigfoot is blurry. Thanks, Mitch. I don't know if they were calling themselves Mitch or thanking somebody named Mitch who brought this up, but I did want to talk about this because I saw another comment about like, well, the government only allows the blurry ones out there, which may be possible. And by the way, that question was from Sao E Yesi. Sao I see. So I see.
And there was much rejoicing.
Ah, so I see. I got it eventually.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
And if I'm wrong, please tell me because I probably am.
Get on with it.
Some people that have had encounters with cryptids experience this idea of it phasing in and out. I'm not going to say that Bigfoot is blurry because there's enough accounts where people have seen it and it's very visceral, but there does seem to be an ability for it to phase in and out or camouflage itself to some degree. I don't know. What are your thoughts about blurry Bigfoot photos and blurry cryptid photos, David?
I mean, it could be true, it could be possible, but also could be used as an excuse where people are trying to say they saw Bigfoot or saw some kind of a creature, even though they're just lying to get, attention.
Yeah.
And they purposely take a photograph and make it blurry so that you can't see the details and really zoom in and say, I see how clear this picture is. I can see that it's fake. They don't want you to see that, so they blur it. So you can say, look, I saw Bigfoot, but it came out blurry. They always come out blurry. I think that could be a way to kind of explain away the fact that they faked it.
You know what? I'm going to take that a step further too, because you're totally right. And this is something I've seen in the ghost side of things a lot. And I'm not saying people are purposefully doing it, but people, I think, are unaware of the technology they're using to capture things sometimes. And so I get a lot of people that send me ghost photos. They believe truly in their mind that they captured a ghost. When I get photographs like that, sometimes, most of the time, I see a lot of what's called orbs.
Yeah.
And to me, and I think we've discussed this a little bit on a previous episode, but if we haven't, here it is. Most orbs, in my opinion, are the refraction of light that hits a camera lens, and it could be dust, it could be a moth, it could be a fly, it could be a spider web, it could be a lot of different things. It could even be smoke from somebody breathing or somebody vaping, because that's the big thing now, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff can look in a single photograph as if it's an anomaly, like it's a ghost or something. But if you don't know the technology, you don't understand that. Same with blurry photos. You may think you're seeing Bigfoot in a photo after you've taken it. But if the lighting conditions are so that it's dark, most cameras automatically change the shutter speed to be slower, meaning the slower shutter speed allows more light to come in, but if you're moving, will remove any ability for the camera to focus on objects that are moving a lot. And sometimes the perspective of the camera can change that and make that seem like, oh, this tree is perfectly in focus, but the stuff behind is super blurry. Well, if the stuff behind is further and you're using a telephoto lens that's longer, then the parallax is going to make the tree in the foreground look more sturdy and everything else be blurred. So like there's all these things that happen with cameras, and people will often jump to the conclusion that it's paranormal. I just ask you all, really look at what you're doing and see what the scientists, see what the technically minded people, see what the debunkers would say about your stuff before you put it out there. Because you should probably have some real good explanations as to why that's not the case if you're going to present something to the world as evidence. So that's my take on it. I think sometimes people just inadvertently get a blurry image because the shutter is really slow on the camera because they don't have enough lighting, and it just makes it look blurry. Yeah, just my 2 cents. But maybe Bigfoot is blurry. I don't know. Maybe there's just a giant Gaussian blur walking around that sometimes pretends to be Bigfoot. And next question we have is from JDW242B, and they write us, what if we are in a simulation and we're so deep in the matrix that it takes deep sea type searches to find us? So this was a question that I wanted to bring up because the idea of us being in a simulation, we haven't really discussed that yet, have we, Wizard?
No, we haven't done a video on simulation or the existence is a simulation. No.
There is a school of thought in the New Age and sort of mindfulness community that all of our existence is because our consciousness is constructing it. I don't want to say that I believe that. I don't know where I stand on that yet because it's a lot to take in. But it also means every bad thing in my life was my fault. And as much as I love taking responsibility, I don't know if I can for all that. But if that's the case, our consciousness manifests the reality around us, which is how power of attraction works and how like positive thinking turns into like manifesting abundance in your life. Like I've seen it work for people and I've seen it happen, but the idea of the whole reality being constructed is bonkers because that means my perspective is different from yours, from Wizards, from these other people.
Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was. Look again. Freeze it.
So who's actually creating the reality, right?
Right.
I know some of it in theory is the idea that we have an established sort of like perception of what should be reality.
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious.
You know, for everybody, it's not the case. Like, not everybody says this is the established reality. Not everybody thinks that this stuff, or like, hey, if you're on acid or mushrooms, like, established reality is very different for you. So, not that I would know from firsthand experience, but I'm saying established reality becomes very different in that scenario. I don't know, man. Like, do I need to think that I'm in a computer game? I play computer games to get out of this reality. If I think this is a computer game, who wants to play a computer game with like an overweight white dude with a beard who kind of sits around in front of a computer all day? That's a terrible game. This isn't even like The Sims. There's no interesting things that happen. I don't know. What do you think, Wizard, on simulation?
Well, there's some corroboration there. And I was recently reading, and it shocked me, is that in our own eyesight, in our vision that we see every day, the colors, red, blues, greens, yellows, purples, all these colors that we see don't actually exist. They're just wavelengths of radiation.
Mm-hmm.
And our cones and rod cells in our eyeballs and our brain says, okay, that's at 420 nanometer wavelength, so that's a purple, or that's a blue, or this is a green, and it kind of patches it together and we see colors.
Yeah.
Even though they're not actually there. It's fabricated in our mind. So what is the real color, black and white? I don't know.
Maybe color doesn't exist.
There's kind of an idea there that something can truly exist only in our head.
That's amazing.
So Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But as far as a simulation, from a Christian perspective, I could see it being a possibility where, like I've mentioned in previous episodes, that we are a being of light, or a soul, or a ball of light and energy. That's truly who we are. We're kind of thrown into this meat suit. It's kind of a proving ground, or a test to see what you do. You're given these hands and feet, and what are you going to do with it? You have free will.
Yeah.
It kind of proves who you are and what you're about and what you believe. And so it could be kind of a very, very advanced simulation that's above anything that we could even comprehend.
And you know what? This is where your beliefs and my beliefs definitely work together, because I, like you, think there is a soul, there is an essence to us, whether it's a sphere of light or just pure energy that inhabits the meat suit and puppeteers it, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But our consciousness is who we are truly, not the body that we're in. So
Right.
I totally in agreement there. Now, in terms of a simulation, yeah, maybe this is like we get into this mech suit again, really crappy mech suit. I would like one with abs next time, please, because I would like abs, but I don't want to put it into work because I like tacos too. But anyway, I guess where I do like the idea of simulation theory is this idea that if you look at Earth as a school or like an amusement park, then there is a lot of learning that happens. If we all are part of a God source, then it allows us to have an individual experience to then share with God and to say, here are the things we've learned, here are the things we've experienced, here's the beauty of your creation. That's all within my belief system, and I think that's pretty amazing. But I just don't know if it's a computer program and we're just jacked in like Neo in the Matrix, and I have to get out and throw up oatmeal every time somebody puts something in my skull. I don't know if that's the case. But what I do know is I again want abs. So somebody code that for me, please.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you guys for your questions. And if you have questions that you'd like us to try to tackle or to mutilate like we did today, drop those in the comments below, because we love reading them. And if you also have stories or ideas, thoughts, even your own speculation on Edgar Cayce or on any of the topics we discuss, drop those in the comments as well. We love engaging with you all. I see Wizard in there all the time responding to people. I get in there as much as I can, but I do see Wizard in there often doing the work and keeping you all engaged. And again, Wizard, I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you, buddy.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Just like I mentioned in the past, you get a large group of people, any group of people in the world, no matter where their culture, their race, no matter who they are. Out of maybe 100 people, there might be 10 or 15 that you can sit down and have these conversations like we have without being looked at as a weirdo or a freak. Most people don't want to delve into that because they can't understand it. They can't process it. So they just don't talk about it. I really enjoy doing this, and I hope you guys watching, we can all talk together about it. Things that nobody else wants to hear about because they think you're a weirdo. We're weirdos here.
Yeah, we're okay with it. Be as weird as you want. Be weird in the comments, and keep the love coming. We appreciate all of you subscribing and liking our videos. Continue to do that. Thank you all for coming with us and sharing these videos, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to get to talk to you all and hear your stories. The Dogman stories, Wizard. Oh my God, have you read the Dogman stories?
I've read a few, but I didn't have time to go through a lot of them.
So many great stories. Just keep them up, because we love reading that stuff. And eventually, if people are okay with it, maybe we do an episode where we share all of your stories out there.
That would be really cool. Just read some of the comments, what people have seen, what they've experienced, and then we can kind of springboard off of that and create a whole new conversation. That'd be cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for watching, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Please give the video a like, because it does help us, and continue to comment and have discourse in that comment section, because it all helps in the old algorithm thingy that gets us out there and allows other people to see our content. So, yeah.
Again, thanks for watching, guys. That's what we exist. That's what this channel is for. If you'd like to see more of it, again, like Tommy said, hit the subscribe button, because you don't want to miss out. And don't forget to share with friends and family. The holidays are coming soon, Thanksgiving, and you're around some of those family members you think, I know John or Susie or whoever, they're a weird ghost freak into this freaky stuff. Send them the link to our channel.
Yeah, I mean, we even have a Christmas episode from last year, so feel free to share that during the holidays. Yeah, maybe don't share the demonic videos, though, because you don't want to be inviting the bad spirits this time of year.
Right. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Shooter McGavin.